So, obviously, I'm there, I'm chatting to my girl, yeah, and I say, well, the second marriage is always better than the first. You know, like Ange Postecoglou was saying at the parade. Yeah, did it work? Nah, she left me and took the kids. Well, anyway, side note, you sat very, scarily close to that window, no? Right, so I've installed some triple glazed weapons grade Kevlar armor, bomber clerk, mad tin glass, so there shouldn't be anything getting through. What the hell are these balls made out of? Yo guys, it is your boy Nirin here, and you are watching FTW. This, of course, the series where I bring to you the best and more frequently the worst of what football has to offer during the last 7 days. But what has been kicking off in the world this week? Well, we witnessed the true pinnacle of UK culture, chasing a roll of cheese down a fuck-off massive hill. This event is a staple of the UK summer, okay? It takes place every single year, but one Don suffered perhaps the biggest fall of all time.
We'll have a look, of course we'll have a look.
Yeah, he's dead, mate. A closer look at the reverse angle shows a slightly different outcome upon landing the flip. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you, this man's spine will have had to have been reinstalled after an incident like this. He's looking like an isosceles triangle right now in hospital, and it's gonna be a hard one to explain to his insurance company. I can't even lie, bro. I'm lactose intolerant. I can't even eat that. Okay, yeah. And why are you here? I'll be honest, the beds are just really comfy. On to the football though now, and it was a pulsating day at the top of the Premier League. Pulsating if we're talking about Andrew Robertson when he sees Curtis Jones in the shower.
Why are you gay?
Don't get me wrong, I'd happily grab the balls of any Liverpool player this season if they had. The title had obviously already been wrapped up for a while, and we commemorated that by going out on the lash for 3 weeks. We've been handing out points left, right and centre, but since we've actually won the league already, croquet is suspended. Oh, how abhorrently alcoholic. Thankfully though, next up for us, another team of pissheads. Fresh off the back of their FA Cup victory, it was Crystal Palace. I'll be honest, I was expecting this to have a slightly different look to it in comparison to the usual Premier League game, unless United and Tottenham were involved. There may have been mutual respect in terms of alcohol consumption, but there was in terms of the pre-kick-off routine as well. Liverpool and Palace giving each other a guard of honour, and Liverpool supporters were even giving Palace fans a guard of honour in the park. Yeah, that might be a little bit too much, not gonna lie.
I'm rapidly falling out of love with football.
Jurgen Klopp and Arne Slot were pictured together. Jurgen extremely cordial with his replacement, until realising the Dutchman's been given a budget larger than he got about 5 seasons combined. Now, like I said, we've been on charity work business since winning the league, though no one decided to donate to Darwin Núñez, who still couldn't score. To be fair, knowing him, he'd probably spend those donations on a life-sized figure of Robert Mugabe.
I would like to be a terrorist.
Alisson is actually fed up of drinking at this point. He hasn't seen water since March, and his ball put Conor Bradley under pressure, a massive gap being exposed, and we were 1-0 down. Things got worse for the Reds when Ryan Gravenberch was then sent off as the last man after a miscontrol. Honestly, he just wanted to get to the bar first, but Mo Salah managed to save us with an equalising goal, also equaling the goal and assist or goal contributions record of Premier League history, being 47, set by Andy Cole and Alan Shearer. He also had time to comfort Roman Essa, who was left in tears after coming on as a substitute, then making a mistake for the goal and being subbed straight back off again. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Liverpool's player of the season could be seen, and also Mo Salah as well. Yeah, this doesn't really help the BGMOL allegations. The actual backstory of this is this linesman was retiring. This was his final game as a lino, so he was pretty emotional as well. All the Palace and Liverpool players giving him a nice send-off. He's actually 61 years of age, which I find massively impressive. His training routine must look very different to other officials. But it was time to actually celebrate for the Reds and finally get that trophy lift.
20 times the champions of England.
Mo Salah was anointed the official king of Liverpool. Meanwhile, Federico Chiesa was being carried around like the little princess that he is. Our official photographer for the day looked a little bit different. Meanwhile, there was Carlsberg being handed out for Liverpool players. Look, listen, I love the sponsorship as much as the next guy. Winning a league title and your prize is a pint of Carlsberg is a crime against humanity. Trent Alexander-Arnold was man-marking the trophy better than I've seen him man-mark any winger he's ever faced. And of course, Trent was playing his final game for the club. That and the fact that pregnancy levels are lower in Spain saw him emotional at full time. The next day, though, it was time for the parade, as hundreds of thousands of Reds fans packed through the Liverpool city streets to see an open-top bus parade, and Wataru Endo most likely throw up on a family of 4. The scenes were absolutely glorious. There was more smoke than Maurizio Sarri's conservatory, and enough alcohol to wipe out the entirety of Sri Lanka, or give Jack Grealish a light buzz.
Jack Grealish, his name was Jack.
Meanwhile, elsewhere up in the buildings, One Liverpool fan decided to take on a security guard in a 1v1. Honestly, he might start out wide for Everton these days. But of course, the big news to come out of the parade was its culmination, which saw a collision, a traffic incident, a man from the area deciding to drive his car through and ram into fans who were celebrating Liverpool's title win. 40 people were left injured, including children. The man in question was immediately arrested, and it was an absolutely devastating incident given what had been such an incredible day up to that point. Thankfully, there were no fatalities, and the man, as I said, was immediately arrested, and I did find the immediate response somewhat interesting. The club obviously came out and condemned the actions, asking for the community to come together, which for the most part it absolutely did. But for some, and I'm sure you know exactly who these people are, there was an immediate desire for people to ask the ethnicity or religious background, let's say, of the man in the car. Truthfully, it does not matter. They're a despicable person regardless, and the people whose first thought is to question that, the likes of Joey Barton, Lawrence Fox, these grifter scam artists who are the chewing gum on the bottom of your shoe characters, don't actually care about the victims whatsoever. They have no interest in the people that were run over in this incident. It's just an immediate opportunity for political point scoring, and that is perhaps some of the worst discourse said by some of the worst people in this country. A so-called comedian here was getting involved in the action as well. Comedian in his bio doing heavy lifting, like his SPF 50 when he goes somewhere that's over 11 degrees Celsius. Comedic weaponry of going at people for getting run over is pretty pathetic arsenal. Fitting, given he hasn't actually won anything meaningful since 2004. This man was actually involved in drama after Euro 2020 for bringing up the fact that all of our white players scored in the shootout against Italy, and it was in fact the black players that had let us down. But honestly, I would rather subject myself to 50 Euros final defeats than subject myself to content like this.
A white British man has been detained, and what we can reveal is that he is a white man. If he hadn't have been a white man, we would of course have kept his ethnicity secret for several days in the interests of diversity and inclusion.
That was shit.
Having a list of places you'll be performing at on your social media accounts after tweets like these are a bold choice. At least there'll actually be a crowd there this time, even if it is just to chuck rotten vegetables at him. Things like this, honestly, are tragic, and thankfully everyone looks like they should be making a speedy recovery. Let it bring people together and not tear people apart. I was at the parade myself, a few streets over from where the incident happened. I appreciate everyone's kind messages in response, but the vibes there and, you know, amongst such incredible people overall were phenomenal. The overarching thing I'd like to say, though, is my thoughts are with those affected, and as I said, hopefully everyone makes a speedy recovery. Now, the drama football-wise was in the top 4 battle, a dogfight between about 11 clubs with Tottenham just watching on in the background. The major game in this debacle was Nottingham Forest's clash versus Chelsea. Forest needed a win to reverse the moderate plastic bottle they'd volleyed at an unassuming turtle.
Not another one?
And fired themselves back into the Champions League spots. They decided they needed a change at right back, that being a Sky Sports pundit in the form of Gary Neville, who was banned for his comments about the club recently, Jamie Carragher not providing much sympathy over on Insta. Gary left fuming, seeing himself and Bonnie Blue are the only people that are actually banned from that stadium. Speaking of which, he was kicked out again, this time for being in the away end with Chelsea supporters. As for Neville, there were Where's Gary pamphlets being handed out outside the ground, and he had a very intense phone call with Forest's owner Marinakis.
Who the fuck's got my number and I'll let you off, mate, 'cause it's the first time your number's come up. Shut up, you fucking dick. I'm being genuinely serious.
There was some wholesome stuff though before this one kicked off, and that was the venturing of Taiwo Awoniyi back onto the pitch for the first time, greeted with applause by Forest fans after his very scary injury a few weeks back. But unfortunately, there wouldn't be a wholesome end for Forest supporters as they were beaten 1-0 by Chelsea, who qualified for the Champions League instead. Gary Neville left absolutely delighted after being taken off commentary duty for this one. Chelsea players can be seen celebrating in the dressing room. Reece James trying to do incognito, nonchalant celebrating. He actually just doesn't want to move his knee because he'll injure it immediately. I don't know why Jadon Sancho's bothering to celebrate. You'll be back at Manchester United next season. Still a great campaign note for Nottingham Forest. I know they would have liked to have been in the Champions League, but European football for them is also great. And shout out to some of their players, the likes of Murillo, the likes of Milinkovic, obviously Morgan Gibbs-White as well, and Matt Sells, who managed to grab himself a share of the best goalkeeper award or most clean sheets with Arsenal's David Raya. Now, Newcastle actually almost bottled the Champions League because of a final day defeat to Everton. We were so unbelievably close to Newcastle fans not being able to go to Saudi Arabia for the celebrations. You know, that thing that the Saudi Arabian government were paying YouTubers to promote. Thankfully, they still secured 5th, and so Dog Dad can still cartwheel naked down Riyadh Main Street tonight. There was controversy, though, between Manchester United and Aston Villa, as Villa missed out on a final Champions League spot by a point due to an absolutely horrific refereeing decision. They had a goal disallowed after some Bayendir banditry injury in the United goal, losing the ball, Rodgers stealing it off him, only for the referee to think that Bayindir still had it in his hands. And to add insult to injury, United then scored 3 minutes later. I know for a fact the club are going to be keeping that referee hostage on the roof of the stadium. Let me tell you something! Let me tell you something! Bayindir, by the way, in all of this, somehow managed to make Andre Onana look like Petr Cech. Maybe there's similar levels of brain injury involved, I'm not entirely sure. Speaking of brain injury, and Emi Martinez must have been suffering with one, he was busy with his hands. Not saving things, but instead using them to run out and rugby tackle Rasmus Højlund. Get him off the field! He got himself a red card for the denial of a goal-scoring opportunity, but it is Rasmus Højlund in front of goal, so kind of harsh to assume that it's a goal-scoring opportunity at all. I can't wait for FIFA to award this high-level brain ping with a Best Goalkeeper award in 2026. But whilst it was a victory here for United, they still finished 15th, and so with that, their entire squad is now up for sale. That was before the Europa League final, let's be honest. Jim isn't replacing any of these players, by the way. He just wants to buy himself a yacht. One of those players is firmly Alejandro Garnacho, who was involved in an argument with Ruben Amorim, in which the Portuguese manager told him, "You better pray you find a new club." Words that Ruben himself will be hearing in November. At least there's some level of joy for a former United star, though.
Napoli are champions of Italy.
Scott McTominay and Napoli won the Scudetto in dramatic fashion on the final day against Cagliari. Not only that, but McTominay here even scored a lovely acrobatic effort that has been rewarded with a heavenly painting around the city of Naples. They're all heroes, but Scott McTominay did an unbelievable job, and he was rewarded by winning the MVP of the entire division. This is Scott McTominay we're talking about, by the way. He was pictured with his new team of the season card. That's probably the first McTominay card that's ever been worth more than 800 coins. McTominay was, like, average, let's say, for United, though clutch, and he's gone to Italy and become their best player. If Bruno Fernandes leaves this godforsaken club, he'll win the Ballon d'Or. The secret, though, for the Scotsman? Nicotine. Yeah, he could be seen smoking cigarettes at the Napoli parade. 1 season in Italy and he's doing up 30 a day. Him and Wojciech Szczesny, green links. Maybe Scotland's best player ever has lungs that look like black pudding. Napoli fans are literally in love with him, and I am honestly so happy for him. What a storyline that is. We even got to see a man who can perform religious miracles, and also the Pope pictured together. Obviously a tremendous achievement for Napoli. Their supporters were loving it. This man halfway through a pizza. Supporters knew that Antonio Conte had the measuring of Simone Inzaghi. Napoli's players were chanting Pedro's name after his heroics for Lazio versus their title rivals Inter last week. And as for Romelu Lukaku, he's used to stopping Inter from winning things whilst actually playing for them. Now he's actually done it for somebody else. But it's not all good news for Napoli, as there's the potential that Antonio Conte could be leaving the club. I assume he hasn't tried to assault a dinner lady or start guerrilla warfare with 7 members of his squad. He's become bored and now he might be heading off. He has a low attention span, genuinely. It's the only explanation. Massimiliano Allegri may well be the replacement. Honestly, Italian managers are so funny. Clubs just share between each other. It's like one massive orgy every time. Back in the Premier League, though, and Tottenham got absolutely battered 4-1 by Brighton, a starting 11 that was expeditiously hungover after their Europa League victory. This screenshot will need to be actually explained to generations to come. To relegated teams, then it's just Tottenham in the Champions League. Truly in a league of their own this season, Spurs. One worse than everybody else has been.
Spurs is not a team in the Premier League.
So in fairness, the admin did include the fact they were Europa League champions in the fact that they lost to Brighton. Honestly, fair enough. The scenes for the parade, though, were absolutely glorious. Honestly, this one looked like a sick one as well. Meanwhile, Heung-min Son was letting everybody know how much he loved Brennan Johnson.
Johnson again!
Ange Postecoglou, before the game against Brighton, was seen talking about the club's absences due to injury.
There will be a couple of absences. But Romero, he's been struggling with his toe for quite a while. So we'll leave him out. And probably Sonny as well.
Let's be honest, Sonny and Romero were just definitely hungover. Romero was prescribed alcohol for his toe injury. Daniel Levy was waiting for his entire squad to be absolutely trolleyed so they can drunk sign deals to stay at the club for £6 per week till 2087. Heung-min Son probably thinks he's on army duty. It's just flashing lights in the club everywhere. Jed Spence was probably getting high down on the touchline v Brighton. But as for Ange Postecoglou, even though they've won themselves a trophy finally, this isn't the end yet.
And I'll tell you something, I'll leave you with this. All the best television series, season 3 is better than season 2.
Southampton versus Arsenal now. The Saints actually scored in this game. Will Still is in phase -1, by the way. The crucial thing here, honestly, apart from Southampton fans chanting at Arsenal supporters about Spurs' Europa League victory, it's a shithousery award for Saints fans, is the fact that Arsenal supporters are never going to have to watch Raheem Sterling ever again.
One of the club teams loaned the player and that team sold the player, bro.
Don't ever fall in love with a lone player, because this one's shit. These TikTok comments, by the way, have me absolutely creasing. Believable player is nasty work. A player like many others. He really keeps you in your seat. Raheem Sterling is absolutely within this work. But at least things are better for Arsenal's women's side, who defeated Barcelona in the Champions League final to at least bring some silverware to that side of North London. What a performance and what a journey for them. Chloe Kelly confirming that Arsenal are in fact massive and that the women's side really have protected the men from shame here. Joan Laporta was quoted as saying that his side were much stronger than Arsenal. I'm assuming Arsenal's women's manager used that as motivation before kickoff. Meanwhile, Mikel Arteta will be turning up to this with a bottle of sangria and a dream, hoping he gets a little bit of credit.
Calm down, bro. You're gonna get some.
Now, next up in maybe Malaysia Airlines' biggest ever mystery, well, actually, maybe second ever, is Manchester United flying straight to Malaysia for a post-season game just a day after the end of the Premier League season. But it was the FA Cup replays that were the problem. They were facing against a Malaysian all-star side that had Sergio Aguero and Joao Pedro in it. Not the actual ones, obviously, but they actually lost 1-0. Argentine centre-back Lisandro Martinez will have been confused seeing Sergio Aguero score after his heart issue.
Can't believe it. Someone said you was dead.
All-stars in Malaysia ain't even stars. That's just all. They don't even get the £175,000 they went there to try and earn in the first place. But there's a new team looking to beat them in the Premier League next season, and that is Sunderland, who secured a dramatic return to the Premier League thanks to a last-minute goal in the Championship playoff final versus Sheffield United. Every single game during this playoff run has been some last-minute madness. They were cheered on by half the northeast of England, and Ousmane Dembele, who's somehow a Sunderland fan. I don't know how that happened either. It is so good to have Sunderland back. For the rivalry with Newcastle, of course, but they are just a big team. They are a team that you feel like should be in the Premier League. At West Ham, and their mascot broke a Guinness World Record for the amount of consecutive touches of a football by a mascot, and West Ham fans say this season was a write-off. Meanwhile, singer Miles Smith was performing at Radio 1's Big Weekend, a festival in Liverpool this week. He's clearly been getting a lot of comparisons to a footballer because he had to wear a shirt saying, "I swear I'm not Divock Origi on stage." Honestly, I'm not sure if I believe him. That is Divock Origi, I'm sorry, lad. Now though to Germany, where there's some big transfer news. Florian Wirtz could be on the way to Liverpool. I'm so horny, bro.
Beg your pardon?
The Arnie slot machine clearly is projecting winnings at the moment, because we're spending Dominic Szoboszlai's entire hair gel supply on Florian Wirtz here. I mean, imagine he just hops out the car for the Jeremy Frimpong announcement as well.
Would you like a sweetie?
Erik ten Hag has been announced as Bayer Leverkusen's new manager in his absence. That was clearly the final thing that Florian needed to see before jumping ship. Of course, he actually had a very good record and a successful managerial career in the Netherlands before going to United. Unfortunately for him, Leverkusen is just southeast of the Netherlands, so he's absolutely fucked. Borussia Dortmund announced a new shirt sponsor for next season. It's Vodafone. This is looking absolutely class, I'm not gonna lie to you. But Vodafone's normal colour is red. Borussia Dortmund fans actually campaigned that there'd be no red allowed on their shirts. These lot will sell every player they own to Bayern Munich, but they won't have the colour of Bayern on their shirt, okay? And in the DFB Pokal, we had another chance for yet another cup upset this season, as Arminia Bielefeld of the 3rd Division played against Stuttgart in the final. They brought 100,000 fans with them, which is 30% of the population of the town that they're from. But they did lose, I'm not gonna lie. Look, listen, they were left disappointed realising everybody else got a fairy tale this season except for them. But massive props, honestly. As I said, getting to a final as a 3rd Division team is crazy work. In Italy now, a crazy story at Roma, when Nicolo Zaniolo went into his former side Roma's dressing room, was visibly intoxicated, urinated in Roma's facilities, then struck 2 of their younger players by the name of Marco Litti and Mattia Almaviva. Almaviva, a kid who Francesco Totti famously gave his captain's armband to when he announced he was leaving the club. What does he even have any business being drunk for? At least the Tottenham players actually won something. Zaniolo's won an A&E bill in the last 3 years, and that's about it. One Milan fan was ejected from the San Siro for throwing up a Paolo Maldini shirt as a protest to Milan's ownership, who forced him out of the club recently. Honestly, they did him a service not having to watch Milan this season. I assume he's been kicked out for holding up a shirt of a player who's actually good.
We don't do that here.
Meanwhile, 42-year-old Pepe Reina played his final professional game of football this week. He got sent off in it. Not really the best way to do a send-off. Elsewhere, PSG won the Coupe de France, which is like Usain Bolt winning the parents' race at Sports Day. Djibril Cissé hosted his testimonial, arriving in the PlayStation kit of Auger. Looks so sick, I'm not gonna lie to you. Thierry Henry also played in this one and scored a beautiful free kick. Elsewhere on the score sheet was Djibril's son, Cassius, scoring this lovely header, and at the end, Djibril could be seen DJing his own testimonial. Because of course he did. There were emotional scenes in Spain as Luka Modric played his final game for Real Madrid. He officially leaves the club as a legend, genuinely. This cold image of him with all of his silverware is crazy. He tweeted, "Don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened." As for their results this season, and Real Madrid are crying because it happened. But with one legend out, one legend returns. Xabi Alonso officially announced as Real's new manager, Florentino Perez having to remind him that he needed to show the 15 for the amount of Champions Leagues they've won on Real's sleeve. Wojciech Szczesny and Robert Lewandowski look like they're about to get into the acting industry, practicing his punches here for when he delivers one to the right-hand side of Marc-Andre ter Stegen's head. But as for Robert Lewandowski, he had love for some of his other teammates after their final La Liga match this week.
Have a fucking word with him then, Red!
Now there is time for your goals of the week. We've got more screamers for you. First of all, we have this absolute rocket coming from Yibir Ramadani. In Norway now, it wouldn't really be goals of the week, I'm not gonna lie to you, if someone didn't absolutely lash it from the halfway line over a goalkeeper. It's mad how much this happens and you don't realise it. But it happened again in Norway for Sondal. And finally, this one comes with a storyline, because over in the Italian 6th tier, Virtus Biciglie are playing in a relegation playoff against Santaramo. Things are level, but they've had 2 red cards and they're looking like they're about to go down. Only for their goalkeeper, Francesco Musacchio, to score acrobatically from a corner in the 118th minute. What a story. Hello all, and welcome to The Beautiful Game, the segment where we take a look at the poetic and brilliant side of the game that we love. We are back by popular demand for yet more glorious beauty. And that concludes The Beautiful Game. In Saudi Arabia now, and Cristiano Ronaldo dropped the bombshell that he's leaving Al Nassr. He posted this tweet saying it was the end of this chapter, and because of the lack of build-up, I genuinely get the feeling he just decided to tweet this after full time. He's leaving Saudi Arabia with no trophies. That's borderline apocalyptic. It's the end of the chapter, as he said. The chapter was rubbish.
I'm angry. I'm very angry, to be honest with you.
In danger of going 007 on silverware, you know, in a league that he was supposed to absolutely slap up. In America now, and there was the maddest crossover of all time, as Gianni Infantino arrived on one of Speed's streams to deliver him the Club World Cup trophy.
Today I feel...
In South Korea, Jesse Lingard is enjoying himself over there. He featured in a GQ video where he showed off his new trim, and the man's actually become a K-pop star. That's crazy. That's my guy right there. Meanwhile, in Brazil, Neymar is antagonizing Brazilian fans. Bold to do this heading down a staircase when he basically needs a Stana stair lift these days. It was a dramatic final day in Croatia where the Rijeka, I don't know how to pronounce their club name, I'm not gonna lie to you, broke the era of Dinamo Zagreb dominance to lift the Croatian league title. This Dinamo fan might have been annoyed about not winning the league, but he was at least happy the other team in the race, Hajduk Split, didn't win it too. They actually had to deliver the trophy by helicopter because the clubs, which are split across the entire country, all had a chance of winning it even still late on. Hajduk's game, very late on, as 22 minutes of injury time were given at the end. Apparently because the ad board got set on fire, which is insane. There was a surprise in Scotland as well, as Aberdeen won the Scottish Cup final versus Celtic. The stats of the game were truly, so it's a bit of a smash and grab, not gonna lie to you. They held a parade around the city as well, only for the bus to not have an MOT. I can't lie, it was falling apart a bit on arrival. That's United bus parade stuff, actually, that is what that is. In Belgium, and Union Saint-Gilloise made history, winning the Belgian league for the first time in 90 years. It means the McAllister brothers, Alexis and Kevin, both won the league title in the same season. Meanwhile, there were confusing scenes in Singapore when a defender was given a red card for a last man challenge, only for VAR to, quite weirdly to be honest with you, get the decision overturned. Didn't look like a clear and obvious error to me. Either way, what was given instead was a drop ball, and the team who'd just been clean through on goal scored directly from that instead. Eritrea played their first game internationally in 5 years, a team famous for basically going missing recently. They've not been allowed to play in a lot of different countries across Africa because their government is scared that they'll actually just do a runner and leave the country. They drew 0-0 with Niger. In Palmeiras, and we've got a fake throw from a goalkeeper right into his opponent's face, and there's more scrapping going on between the kids of Brazil. Now there is time for Still 0-0, and you guys know the score by now. This is a segment of the show where I bring to you the best of Sunday League and amateur football. And for this one, we're heading to Croatia for a story rather than a video, because we head down to the 6th tier of Croatian football in a game between Straza and Stubica. Things are heating up in this game. You know, there's still a lot on the line ultimately in amateur football. It doesn't just have to be top flight shenanigans for a league title. One club official went a little bit too far, running onto the pitch, insulting the referee, then when he was sent off, decided to stamp on the referee before trying going to bite his nose as well. I mean, look, listen, you had me until biting someone's nose. On to the weird stuff though now. In Czechia, and one team has managed to do the unthinkable. They've had a season worse than Manchester United and Spurs'. Yeah, so SK Dynamo České Budějovice, I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that right, of Czechia, yeah, they've had a bad season, to say the least. They've not won a single game. They've managed to go an entire campaign without winning a single game of football. The crazy thing is, when we get, winless teams, often it's usually teams in lower leagues that have maybe lost all their players, or they're going through some sort of financial ruin. And whilst that may well be the case here, this is actually a top division side in the top flight of Czech football. But finally, we're heading to France, and we're heading to Angers, where one man's season has somehow been even worse. Meet Angers forward Ibrahim Niane, the 26-year-old. I mean, I say meet him, you're not going to see him for a while. He's been banned from football for 2 years after testing positive for ecstasy and MDMA. Not even performance enhancers, this guy just wanted to go to a rave. That, though, is going to wrap up football this week, and I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, then feel free to slap a like on the video, and of course, subscribe if you are new to the channel. You can also follow me on social media. It is at officialfng on Twitter and on Insta. But it's been a pleasure ranting at you guys today. Have a wonderful day, enjoy yourselves, and goodbye.